Hi guys, my name is Barry and welcome back to the channel. Apologies for the lack of video. I'm currently redoing my backdrop and my studio just now, so a non-video will have to do, but you get to see videos of other clips that I'm going to be talking about anyway, so it's all good. So in this video, I did say that before I wasn't going to do a top 10 worst horror movies of 2023. So what I've decided to do is just give you a list of horror movies that I was most disappointed in, and that doesn't mean they were the worst horror movies of the year. It means that I had some expectation, whether it be high or low, but I had some expectation for them. But it turns out these movies didn't deliver what was promised to me or what I felt was going to be a good movie. I'm going to start with the Outwaters. I think found footage movies were going up and down and up and down. Some were good, some were bad. But I thought the Outwaters got a good rating and some people were raving about it. So I decided to give it a go and see what it was all about. And when I watched it, I was scratching my head. I was like, what the heck is happening here? I've got absolutely no idea what's going on. The first part of the movie felt like, do you know what? Seems like it's going to get interesting. But the last 40 minutes or so was very confusing. Maybe you guys understood it, but I certainly didn't. I just thought, what the heck am I watching here? I'm going to put Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey on this list, and it's not because I was expecting massive things from it, but I think the issue with this film was it got a bit of traction accidentally. I think some people were trying to make a Winnie the Pooh movie horror version, and they were just having a laugh, but because it got a lot of traction, the film started to get taken seriously, and maybe it shouldn't have been taken seriously. So because it was taken seriously and I watched it as a serious horror film, I thought, oh wow, this is bad. Next up, we've got Dark Harvest. Now, this is one that it was getting a lot of rave reviews. I've not read the book or the books. I don't know if there's more than one book, but I know nothing about the story of the book and I knew nothing going into this film. But as I watched it, I'm watching and thinking, am I watching the wrong film here? This film is pretty bad, very bad acting. And I know there's some really big stars in the film, but it's got bad acting in it. It looks cheap and nasty. It looks like a film that was made directly for the Sci-Fi Channel. The CGI was pretty bad as well. Everything about it, I just didn't like. And I'm a sucker for these films, and I think you all know this by now. I'm a sucker for these horror films that are set in the 50s and the 60s and stuff. And this was prime for me. I thought, this is going to be great. A film set at Halloween with that kind of 50s, 60s vibe with the T-birds and stuff. But it just fell flat in its face. The Nun II is up next, and I don't really know what I expected from this film. I expected it to be better than the first Nun movie. And I think initially I thought it was better, but when I watched it again, I'm like, is it better than the first one? I'm not too sure. I don't think any of the Nun films are better than each other. They're just both pretty bad. And it was just a non-stop jump scare film. There was less jump scares in this one than there was in the first one, but at the same time, all the film was relying on was jump scares. Next, we've got The Exorcist Believer, and of course, this is probably on a lot of people's disappointing list or even their worst list. Now, this isn't in my bottom 10. I do have a bottom 10, which I won't release, but this wasn't in my bottom 10 films of the year. It was a generic horror film, and I think the issue with this one was it was safe. It was a safe possession movie, but you don't want to go out to make a safe possession exorcist movie. If you want to just make a random possession movie, then fair enough. Just make it safe. But if you're doing a sequel and a direct sequel to the original Exorcist, you have to do something bold, brilliant and different, but it doesn't try to do anything differently. It just gives us a basic generic horror film with a possession involved, and they just sprinkled in a bit of the Exorcist in there just to get bums on the seats. Next we have It's a Wonderful Knife. I genuinely don't know what to expect, or didn't know what to expect with this one. With the trailers, it looked good. I love Justin Long, and one of my favourite movies of all time is It's a Wonderful Life. So when you give us that horror spin on one of the classic films that I absolutely adore, then it's going to intrigue me. But with that intrigue comes disappointment, and that's why it's in my top disappointment movies or top disappointed horror movies of the year, because it didn't provide anything for me. It didn't even give us something new or even something the same as what we got with It's a Wonderful Life. It just takes the story, the basic story of It's a Wonderful Life, tries to give it a horror spin, but it's too Gen Z for me, it's too stupid, and even Justin Long couldn't save this film. Next up, we've got Pet Sematary Bloodlines. Now, I love Pet Sematary. I even liked the Pet Sematary remake that we got a couple of years ago. So when they decided to make a prequel to Pet Sematary, it's obviously a prequel to the remake, I was still intrigued by it because I think the story is there with the history of the cemetery itself and obviously the story of the characters. So I think expanding on that and giving us what we kind of were imagining in our minds was a good idea at the time. And I don't know how they failed with this one. They had all the material there. All they had to do was add to that. And I think that's where the issue was. I think the material that was good in it was the stuff that we already knew. But when they started to add things in, that's when things took a turn for the worse. So I think the idea was there, but the execution, it just wasn't good. Next up, we've got Five Nights at Freddys. Now, I know there's fans of this film. It's made almost $300 million at the box office as well, so it's obviously done something right. And I think it wasn't a bad film. It just was a very generic film to me. I haven't played the Five Nights at Freddy's games, and I hear that you have to play the games in order to enjoy the film, but I don't think that should be the case. I think it shouldn't matter if you played the games or not. If they're making a movie, they have to cater for everyone, not just the fans of the game. So if you're going into this film, watching it and not playing the game, surely they have to make it for you as well, not just the fans of the game. And I think that's why this movie's like Marmite, is because it wasn't just fans of the game that watched it, it was just horror fans in general. So I think half the audience that didn't see the game or play the game didn't really like it, like myself, whereas the fans of the game, the people who played the game, they absolutely loved the movie. So, I think it's great that the movie has made almost $300 million, and I'm looking forward to seeing the second one. I just hope that they flesh it out a little bit more, not just for the gamers, but for the movie lovers. And lastly, it's Scream 6. Now, Scream 6, again, is one of these films that's nowhere near the bottom of my list for the year, but it's definitely one of the most disappointing horror films of this year, of 2023, sorry. Where to begin with this one? Now, I really liked Scream 5. It wasn't amazing, but it was a really good Scream film, and it's a really good horror film. But I don't know where they went wrong with Scream 6. I think with the characters, I think they got too excited with some of the characters. I think Mindy was pretty good in Scream 5, and I think because she got a lot of praise for her performance in Scream 5, and her character was great for Scream 5 apparently, then I think they went OTT with her character. They tried to give us a little bit too much of Mindy, and it didn't work. I still like Chad. I think Chad grew on me. Same with Sam and Tara. I think they all grew on me apart from Mindy. I think they just tried to zone in on this Mindy character, thinking it's going to tick a lot of boxes and everyone's going to love her. But they gave us too much of Mindy, and even the actress gave us too much of Mindy as well. I didn't like her at all in the movie. It wasn't just Mindy that was the problem. Almost everything about the film was a problem. Setting it in New York was supposed to be good, but you could have set it anywhere. It didn't have to be New York, so that was pointless. What else? The finale. I think it was the most cheesy finale of any of the Scream films when they revealed the killers in the movie. Yes, the motive was basic. A lot of the motives are the same, like in Scream 2, but the way that they were revealed was very cheesy. Dermot Mulroney's character went from a normal police officer to this loon ball in the space of seconds after revealing that he was the killer. It just didn't make sense at all. So there's a lot of things wrong with Scream 6. However, I still think it's a good film. It's good. Some of the kills are good. Ghostface is great in it, but it's just something about it that I just didn't like. And I know that when I give it criticism, people say that I hate the film. Why do you hate Scream 6? People ask me. I don't hate Scream 6. I've never said I've hated Scream 6. And if I did, it was because maybe I was overheated at the time. But it's a good film. It probably is to me the most disappointing movie, or the most disappointing horror movie of 2023. So that's just a list of the most disappointing horror films of 2023 for me, guys. Like I said, this isn't a list of the worst films or the worst horror films of the year, because I don't really like doing that. I might go back to doing it at some point, but there wasn't enough in there for me to decide, let's do a top 10 worst. So that's why I thought, let's just do the most disappointing ones of the year. And that means that I can't admit that I hated some of these films, because some of these films on the list were actually okay, but they were still disappointing. But let me know your most disappointing films of the year, guys. It doesn't have to be the worst horror films of the year. Just let me know your most disappointing ones, and they might still be good, but just disappointing to you. But leave the list down below. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon.
Meeting adjourned.
I'll be right back.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Ever played in the cat?
Someone's in the back!